Right, let's talk one-day batting with Kumar. 2 new white balls, 2 bouncers and over. Has 50-over cricket in some way aligned itself more towards Test match cricket than, say, 2020 cricket?
Probably, especially the first 10 to 15 overs. The reason being mainly the two white balls. The white balls swing a bit more, I think, than the red ones early on. And batsmen, they do try to put pressure on the bowlers, but they also are a bit more circumspect than they used to be. And it's a necessity because with the new fielding restrictions, you always have a great opportunity to catch up at the back end. So getting a good solid start with as few wickets lost early on as possible is the best way.
Right, we're going to put you in a situation here. We've got what we think is a good one-day wicket. You've lost an early wicket, you're in. There's 2 or 3 slips. What's your approach then in the first 10 overs?
If I'm in early, within the first 2 or 3 overs, my job is to go back there and try and consolidate, try and build an innings, as you would mostly at any time. So I'd go there and it'll be mostly test match mode to start off with, really watch the ball, try and assess the conditions and try and run well between wickets. And once you've done that for a couple of overs, once you know what the shots are you can play on the wicket, then you try and take advantage of a bad ball with length. Anything that's working for you, try and you climb into that. But I think it's really important that you take that initial bit of time to really set yourself and consolidate, because it really gives you an advantage later on.
How important is it that you stack your top 3, top 4 with Test match players then? I mean, gone are the days where you have to think about pinch hitters.
Yeah, I think pinch hitters, they've gone out of fashion. Quite early, actually. You know, you had the 96 and up to about 2002-03 when you would consider pinch hitters.
Of course, Sri Lanka were at the forefront of that.
Yeah, we were. But then you soon realised that that was not to your best advantage unless maybe you were chasing a really large total. These days, you might find someone thrown in as the inning progresses, maybe after the 35th over, to take advantage of a power play. Something like that. So the pinch hitters, I think, have moved down the innings a lot more rather than up the order. Like I said, it's good batsmen batting for a long period in one-day cricket right now gives any side a huge advantage.
You set a target in the first 10 overs?
You have targets all along. But I think those are targets that you have to reassess depending on the conditions, how the bowlers are bowling, whether you've lost wickets or not. But the real key is to have a foundation from which you can launch. In the first 10 overs, if you're 45, 50 would be fantastic. But anywhere from between 40 and 50 is ideal. That's not always the case. Sometimes you're 35. That's fine, as long as you have good wickets in hand. But if you're an opener, I think the right attitude to have is, look for bad balls, look to score all the time. If it's not there to hit, you leave. You try and rotate strike as best as possible. And if there is a weak link in the bowling attack, that's when you really try and put pressure on the bowlers.
You and Mahela, quite brilliant against spin. Just give us a bit of an insight as to how you might play spin.
Mahela and I played quite differently. He's got a lot more shots than I do against spin. I'm very simple in my mindset when it comes to spin. I play quite a lot on the front foot. If the ball's pitched up, I try and hit the sweepers rather than go across the line. And if
so go with the spin?
Go with the spin most of the time. Unless there are gaps and the wicket's not turning too much, then you can try and hit against spin. Into areas where there's that extra fielder up. But the key again is to keep rotating strike and try at every opportunity that you do get to try and reverse pressure onto the bowler, try and do that. I look at the field and I think, okay, if there is a risk to be taken, this is the area where I will take it. If it's an off spinner, you have the option to go down the ground or over extra cover. The cut becomes an option, or a slog sweep. Anyone bowling into me, I've got the leg side options, or if I want to try and create space by moving around in the crease, try and open up the offside.
English batsmen have traditionally struggled using their feet. Come on, just give us a little kumarsangakara masterclass. I mean, you guys look so comfortable using your feet. What's the key to it?
The key is really to pick up flight and length.
So as soon as it goes above the eye line, you're down, or?
It really depends on how far you're going to go, what kind of shot you're expecting to play. The real key is to come out with an open mind as to, you know, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to come down, see where the ball is. If I'm up to it, then I know where I can hit it. But if you're coming down the wicket, you know, make sure that you're covering the line well enough so that if you do misread it, that you've got enough room and time to get the bat down, or if you miss it, to have the pad in the way. The key is to come down as late as possible, keep your eye on the ball, and really get right to the ball. If you can take it on the full, that's even better. But you really want to be, you know, a maximum of 6 inches to a foot away from the ball, so that your bat can come through and you can hit it hopefully down to the sweepers. Or if you're taking a risk to try and go up over the field, you can still get that close, but you're probably not going to cover the line as much as possible. You're going to give yourself a bit more room for the bat to swing through. So that's where the risk comes in, where, you know, you've left a bit of room for the bowler to try and beat the bat, but you're trusting yourself enough to make sure that you get there first.
What about manoeuvring the field? You look around the field and say, actually, I want to move that fielder over there. Is that part of the game plan?
Yeah, I think in one-day cricket that becomes very important, to try and open up gaps where you want the gaps to be, and have easy gaps open for singles. And if you are getting those singles and they cover that gap, then try and see whether you can have a boundary option or a two option where the field's opened up. So a lot of players will do the lap sweep. They'll try and run it down towards third man. But more often than not, it's simple enough to really be able to play straight and still keep working balls into gaps. If there's not much turn, there are times to an off spinner, without going with the spin, you can actually come down, cover the line, and go over areas like mid-wicket that might be left open for you. Walk across and sweep on length to an area if there's a square leg vacancy.
Something that baffles us in the commentary box regularly is the power play overs.
Yeah.
Wider sides constantly leave it to the last moment to take. What's your take on that?
Well, I think power play overs are a bit tricky. It all depends on the way you approach it. I think the key is, no matter how well you play a power play over or overs, thinking about 50, 55 runs, I think that's way too much. The thing is to keep it simple, play it over by over, treat it like another small innings within the larger game. Try and rotate strike as much as possible. If you do go at 5 or 6 and over, you're going to get 30 runs. You chuck in a couple of 3 or 4 boundaries there, you're going to go past 40. And that you can do with very little risk. The thing with the power play overs is that once the field comes in, sometimes you feel crowded and you think, oh, no, the single's not there really, so I'm just going to try and hit the ball as hard as I can, and I think that's the wrong way to go about it.
With the change in regulations now, where you have to have 5 men in the circle, is that a real opportunity to get your score up to a plus par score?
I think it is. If you've seen most of the one-day cricket that we've seen, we've really, players and teams have really tried to press on the accelerator in those last 15 or maybe even 10 overs. Because of the new rule, even once the power play overs are finished, you still have great options to take on the field with. Bowlers are constantly under pressure, even though there are 2 bouncers. It sometimes is very difficult to try and cover the entire field, because you bowl 2 bouncers, what are you going to do after that? If you bowl 2 bouncers, are you going to have your fine leg and your square leg down? That gives you an option if you do pitch up for a batsman to try and take you down the ground. Batsmen nowadays are very skillful. They move around in the crease. They come out to fast bowling.
Is that something you look to do?
I think you have to. They're all options you take once your normal options have you've kind of exhausted them, and you still think you need to do more to try and score quicker or faster. But the real key is to keep things as simple as possible. All players have areas they like to score in. You've got to try and maneuver the bowling there, or if not, you've got to have enough options to try and go over other parts of the field that maybe you're not traditionally comfortable with, but the situation calls for it.
You've got a brilliant death bowler, we'll say Lasith Malinga. Are you using the crease? You've got a big heavy bat there. How are you trying to negate the Yorker?
Well, you can. With Lasith, it's a bit difficult because he seems to be able to hit a coin on the crease. But yeah, the key is to try and use the crease. The key is to try and see or use whatever you can to get an advantage. So whether it's using the crease, whether it's moving across, whether it's moving forward, backward. A lot of batsmen have different things, and sometimes it's just easy to just keep still. But the bowlers themselves know that they've got a great chance of picking up wickets, because when batsmen are going for it, and the bowlers stick to their game plans and to their fields, it gives them a great opportunity to come back into games and bring the sides back into games. And we've seen that in the past, with especially our bowling attack. We've got such a great variety and such great control that we've been able to do that. So as batsman, if I'm batting against any bowler, if it's the last 5-6 overs, really I'm just trying to hit a 6 or a 4 or run 2s or 3s or whatever. But if I'm trying to hit one, I'm just going to close my eyes and have as big a swing as I can and hope. But we've got, if I make it to the death overs, that means our side's in a really strong position.